I could call up a friend who's going through a tough time and give them a listening ear, but I don't wanna. What tempts you the most? In today's reading, Jesus is tempted 3 times. First, he's tempted with bread. After 40 days of fasting, he must have been pretty hungry. Second, he's tempted to test God, to prove he's really who he says he is, by forcing God to show himself. Third, he's tempted with power and authority in exchange for rejecting God. I've definitely struggled with all of these temptations. When trying to make healthier choices, I'm tempted by everything from McDonald's to donuts. When life gets tough, I'm often tempted to test God, to say, okay, God, if you're real, fix this and make my suffering go away right now. And while the devil has never offered me all the kingdoms of the world, I've definitely been tempted to do or say something I know is wrong in order to impress others or have them like me. So maybe these temptations speak to you too. But for me, the biggest temptation I struggle with is inaction. I could wash the pile of dishes in the office sink, making lives easier for my colleagues. I could dig through my purse and give some spare change to the person on the street who's asking me. I could call up a friend who's going through a tough time and give them a listening ear, but I don't wanna. Inaction is really insidious for me, because unlike most other forms of sin, I don't have to deliberately decide to actively do the wrong thing. I'm really good at convincing myself that I have a very good reason not to act. The good news is, Jesus offers us a great model for spotting temptation and refusing them. Each time Jesus is tempted, he goes to Scripture. I have friends whose knowledge of Scripture truly astounds me. They're able to quote chapter and verse, and they have a quote or a saying for every situation. I'm not that good, but I've definitely found that setting aside time to read Scripture helps me on my spiritual journey. I like to use an app that pulls up the daily readings for me on my phone each morning. It's easy, accessible, and a really helpful way to start my day. My experience is that I can't spend time in Scripture getting to know Jesus without feeling called to act. I don't have to have chapter and verse memorized. The core message of loving others is going to stick in my heart. I remember one time when I woke up already stressed about a meeting I had later that day. I was feeling defensive and angry before anyone had said a thing, and I was convinced it was going to be a difficult experience for everyone involved. But when I opened my daily readings app, each of the 3 readings that day were all focused on unity between Christians. 3 times in a row, God nudged my heart, asking me to set aside conflict and division so that I could choose teamwork and cooperation. It wasn't easy. That meant taking active steps in the right direction instead of wallowing in my self-pity like I wanted to. But in the end, our meeting went wonderfully, full of healthy discussions about working together as a team and achieving our best by helping each other. It can be easy to think of temptation as something bad that happens to us, but it's a common part of the human experience, and what matters most is how we respond to it. We can choose to give in to it, we can choose to be apathetic, or we can choose to actively work for God's will in our lives. Can you think of a temptation in your own life where God might be calling you to act?